Welcome to today's episode of Class B Confessions, where we answer your frequently asked questions about living in a Class B RV.
We've been living in our Airstream Interstate for over 2 years now, and we can't wait to share what we've learned with you.
My name's Aaron, this is my wife Chris, who's Irene, and let's get into it.
Today's question comes from Tim Gilman. Tim asked this question off of the wet bath video. What are the capacities of your fresh, gray, black water tanks? Which fills or runs out first when boondocking?
That's a really good question. And before we talk about ours, I'm just curious if it's actually going to be something that is different for every single person because there's so many variables to it, or if it's going to be a common theme. So if everybody would just put their tank sizes and also which one runs or fills out first down in the comments below, I'm really curious to see what everybody says.
But if they're going to list that info, they also need to list the number of people. So one person versus two people makes a big difference.
Very true, very true. So we have 26 gallons fresh, we have 27 gallons gray, and we have 15 gallons black, which is very good for a Class B van that we're in. So to answer the question right off the bat, our black tank fills up first. We can last an entire week, one full week, with those tank capacities, with the caveat of bringing an extra 12 gallons of water. So really we have 40 gallons of fresh, 27 gray, and 15 black. That lasts us an entire week of boondocking, which is not too bad.
Up to 8 days.
Yeah, we are starting to stretch it out even a little bit more.
The other caveat is how we conserve our black tank. So even with that being our current bottleneck, we have to make severe efforts to get it to that point. So you can watch what we do on our black tank video to see our tips for that.
Yeah, and we haven't done anything on the gray tank yet, but I think that should be coming up soon because that's also an important factor. The fresh water is a little bit easier because you can just carry more on board.
And Aaron was exactly right when he said that these three measurements, the black, the gray, and the fresh, they are very personable depending on your use, depending on your lifestyle. And when we first got into boondocking, it wasn't our black tank that was an initial bottleneck. We ended up tweaking things to get as best as we could with everything.
I think actually they all were very, very similar at first because we didn't carry any extra water on. So it was about 3-ish days that we could just do our straight 26, 27, 15 before we knew any type of conserving really. It was about 3 days.
Yeah, so some big variables on what's going to affect what you use the most is, how much do you eat in your van? How much do you cook? How many dishes are you doing? How much water do you drink? How much are you peeing in your tanks? Everything comes down to lifestyle and also just your ability to conserve, because conserving your fresh water is an art. It takes practice. And if you compare yourself from day one or week one of boondocking to 3 years later, your little tips and tricks are going to be night and day between your abilities to stretch it out.
That's true. I would also like to add, I think our dream tank sizes, if we could have whatever sizes we want, would maybe be around the 80 gallons fresh and then the 40 to 50 gallons gray and black. Because we would love to last 2 weeks while boondocking, but unfortunately it's pretty tough to do in a van.
One of the biggest learning curves on this topic is definitely the fresh water and how hard you run that faucet. So when you come from a house, you don't even think about where the water comes from, having a limited supply of it. And I think that's why most newbies get into an RV and they really struggle with running out of fresh water and filling up your gray tank.
Yeah.
It does take time and practice to figure out how you can trickle your water, and the same way you do military showers for conserving shower water, you need to do that with everything. Like when you wash dishes, you need to systematically wash your dishes with a systematic soap dispenser and trickle the water so that it recycles itself. There are little tricks and stuff that you really just have to practice, and just be aware when you're doing things like brushing your teeth, washing your hands, washing dishes, doing anything with the water. And Aaron and I have become very sensitive when we hear each other running the water really hard. You'll be like, what are you doing up there?
It definitely catches your ear. I even read that the average person in a household uses like 100 gallons per water per person per day. And if you think about that staggering fact, I mean, we use basically 40 gallons for 2 people in a week. And, you know, so when you're coming from an average house, you know, let's just say you use half of that or, you know, 3/4 of that, you use 50, 60, 70 gallons a day. You're not used to that. When you come into an actual tank to a tank, fresh to the gray, like very easy to fill that up. So I think those are I'm curious to see if a lot of people actually fill or run out of those first. But for us, it's definitely the black tank. That's the biggest factor for sure.
Yeah. And with those numbers that you shared, keep in mind that we are drinking out of this fresh water too. We do not purchase bottled water ever.
Yeah. So that's the extra water we carry on board. So it works really well for us to have 12 gallons ish of fresh drinking water. And then also just basically our tank is just our showers, which we do every other day roughly, and dishes. And that's really all we use out of it. So we like having the tanks the exact same size for the fresh and the gray. Mm-hmm. But in some rigs, it's quite a bit different. It might be like an 80-gallon fresh, but only like a 40-gallon gray. And that's going to, you know, fill up pretty quick. And you're going to have a ton of fresh water left over, but no room. But of course, there's different little things that you can do to stretch out that gray water.
Yeah. Another reason we like having that match for match with the gray tank and the fresh water is because, you know, your tank sensors can get a little gummed up, so your black tank sensor and your gray tank sensor aren't always accurate. Mm. But usually our freshwater sensor is. So if we see that we have about 1/3 left remaining of our fresh tank, we generally have 2/3 full on our gray tank. So having that equal match for match is also a good gauge for us, since sometimes sensors can be unpredictable.
And it just takes the thought process out of it.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And since we're talking about other styles of tanks out there, there are some tanks that have a combined black and gray, where it sloshes all together in one big tank. I personally, I've never had that, so I can't say like concrete, but I don't think I would like it.
If it was big enough, I wouldn't really care.
Yeah.
'Cause it all goes to the same dump station anyways. But yeah, if it was smaller, that would be tough.
It'd be really hard to manage.
Yep, absolutely. So we want to keep these videos kind of short. Sometimes we have trouble doing that. But also we want to keep this kind of an open type of discussion with these confessions. This is just what we have learned in the past couple years of living in our Class B van. And we love sharing this type of stuff. So if there's anything that you guys would like to hear about, please let us know. And I think that's going to do it.
We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
We've been sliding since I don't remember when.